But I realized as I'm watching like these old home movies before we got the word, the diagnosis, I realized, man, I had so much joy in being his mom, like before the diagnosis.
Right.
And I realized that I had lost that joy.
They robbed you of those.
Yeah, once that word came, once the news came, the diagnosis came, and you know, that day as I was watching those movies, I'm like, Lord, I just made a decision. You know, I had walked through a few years of grieving and again, just the process of therapy, and he's doing so well. Like he's just this little, he's hilarious, first of all. He is his father's child, let me just say that. But I took my joy back of being his mom. And man, we walked this journey of faith, and what the Lord really taught me also through that was how to fight for my child, and how to stand in the victory of Jesus. Back in 2008, my husband and I found out that we were pregnant with our third child, who was a very welcomed surprise. He was a surprise. Did
you forget how that happened?
Yeah. Like, our kids were 8 and 11 at the time, and boom, I'm pregnant again. And so Carson was born, and you know, we like started all over, right? Because you know, you have older kids and you have the new baby, and life was really busy. We were in, you know, full-time ministry on staff at a church and traveling in ministry as well, and you know, 2 older kids and all the activities. And so our little guy, Carson, around the age of 2, as we take him to his pediatrician appointments, and you know, the doctor's asking about these certain milestones, and is he, you know, how many words is he saying, and all these different things. And you know, busy mom of 3, and like, you know, I guess I'm really not paying attention to those things like I did with my other 2, and just kind of realizing that language really wasn't coming for him like it should be, and just some developmental delays. And so at the age of 2, we started him in speech therapy, and you know, he was doing well. I was kind of doing my own little research, you know, online of different things, but no doctor, no therapist was saying the word to me that the scary word, the word that I didn't want to hear, until he began preschool. He qualified for a great preschool program through our public school system because of his speech needs. And so when he started preschool, the teacher met with me and my husband about a month in, and she said, you know, I think there's more going on here than what meets the eye. You know, in the classroom, there's some different things happening, and we want to bring in our autism team to do some more testing. Mm-hmm. And I remember in that moment, so we were sitting in the little classroom in the little short preschool chairs. And we were leaving later that day for a ministry engagement across the country. And when she said the word autism, I immediately first was very defensive. You know, I'm like, you don't know my son. You've had him in your class for a month, and you're trying to put a label on him because he might be a little more difficult, you know, for you to deal with, right? Mm-hmm. So it was very resistant, but I felt like I had been punched in the gut because something in my heart just I kind of knew. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to see it. So I remember we went away that weekend for this ministry event, and I was so not there. My mind was, you know, not in the moment of what we were doing. And I just remember we'd go back to the hotel room, and my husband had just written this song. They had, you know, demoed the song as we were listening to it. And the lyric was, don't be far from me. I'm here waiting on you. God, I'm not moving. I'm here waiting on you. And I remember just like laying on that hotel bed, just weeping, just so broken at the idea of this. You know, the facts hadn't come in yet, but I just, you know, so I resisted the testing for about a month or so. And then I finally said, you know, we came through the holidays, and my husband and I were like, you know what? Yeah, I think they might be right. And so we went through the process of a couple months of, you know, the school psychologists, the different therapists doing, you know, different kinds of tests. And honestly, I thought even when we went to that final meeting to get the results, I thought, he's not on the spectrum. He's not on the autism spectrum. They're going to be surprised. They're going to say, and we sit down for that meeting, and, I heard the words confirmed that he indeed was, on the spectrum, that he was a child that qualified. What was the exact verbiage they used? He has autism spectrum disorder, and he was moderate on the spectrum, and so began our journey. And I think, the difficulties that our son had didn't change when that label came.
Right.
But the label and the word autism scared me so much, and just brought so many questions and so much fear, because, there's first of all, a lot unknown about it. And what does that mean for his future?
Right.
Will he know love? Will he have a family of his own one day? Will he be successful? When you receive a diagnosis, the name of the disease or the name of, the challenge, sometimes it can just be really intimidating. And so when we received the diagnosis of autism for our son, even though he still had, he was already in speech therapy, he was already in these therapies to help him, but because there's so much unknown about autism, and so much fear surrounding the word, it impacted me. It hit me really hard, and I had to learn to say God is greater than autism, and so I'm not going to be intimidated by a label or a diagnosis, because he's still the same little boy that he was before we got the name autism. And so, but yeah, it's little things like that can kind of play with our mind and kind of mess with our faith, right? But that's how we have to have the revelation of who God is and really how great he is, that there is no, he's greater than cancer, he's greater than any disease, any situation we may face, and he is greater than autism, he is greater than Down syndrome, any challenge that you may be facing, that your child may be facing. The Lord will carry you through it, and you can overcome, but we've got to know that he is greater. I've always been a worshiper. My husband and I have been worship leaders for years, and I love the presence of God. I remember thinking, man, the well of worship in my soul, it's like I was just like scraping bottom. I'm like, in order to fight through this, the well of my worship has to go deeper. And through the journey as we began, he at that time, it was right after he turned 4 years old that we got the diagnosis. And so more speech therapy, more occupational therapy. But it was a few years down the road of walking through all this that I realized, it's like you grieve what, the expectations and hopes that you had for your child. And when you have 2 normal kids, you're totally like unaware of this whole world that exists of families with special needs kids until you're there and in it. And so, 4 or 5 years down the road, I realized as I'm watching like these old home movies before we got the diagnosis, I realized, man, I had so much joy in being his mom, like before the diagnosis.
Right.
And I realized that I had lost that joy.
They robbed you of those.
Yeah, once that word came, once the news came, the diagnosis came, and that day as I was watching those movies, I'm like, Lord, I just made a decision. I had walked through a few years of grieving and again, just the process of therapy, and he's doing so well. Like he's just this little, he's hilarious, first of all. He is his father's child, let me just say that. But I took my joy back of being his mom. And man, we walked this journey of faith, and what the Lord really taught me also through that was how to fight, how to fight for my child, and how to stand in the victory of Jesus.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe today and you'll never miss a new upload.
And don't forget to check out our Better Together shop. Thanks for being a part of our community.